Beneath the endless blue of the Indian Ocean lies a mystery older than memory itself. Somewhere between India and Madagascar, explorers, mystics, and scientists once believed there existed a forgotten land, a vanished continent known only by one name, Lemuria. For centuries, the Indian Ocean has guarded its secrets well, yet from time to time it whispers, through fragments of coral, through fossils buried in the sand, and through legends carried by island winds. They all speak of a sunken world, a lost civilization, and a kingdom erased by fire and water. In the 19th century, long before modern science revealed the movement of continents, geologists faced a riddle they could not explain. Why did the animals and plants of India resemble those of Madagascar, separated by thousands of kilometers of sea? British zoologist Philip Sclater, studying the lemur, noticed that fossils of this strange creature appeared in India, Africa, and on the islands in between, but nowhere else on Earth. To explain it, he imagined a vast land bridge that once connected them all. He called it Lemuria. The idea fascinated Victorian scientists and spread quickly across Europe. Soon, maps and atlases began to show an immense landmass stretching across the Indian Ocean. Lemuria became a symbol of the unknown, a place lost to time, yet somehow part of human origins. It was imagined as the cradle of early life, and perhaps even the birthplace of mankind. But as the idea escaped the boundaries of science, it entered the realm of myth. Writers and philosophers turned Lemuria into something more profound than geography. They described it as a world of knowledge and purity, inhabited by beings of great wisdom and light. According to them, Lemurians were tall, serene, and spiritual, living in harmony with nature, guided by forces we no longer understand. They spoke through thought, used crystals as energy, and built cities that glowed under the sun. Then came the day when the earth trembled and the ocean rose, swallowing everything. The legend said the Lemurians did not die. They descended into the sea, becoming part of the planet's memory itself. Their temples turned into reefs, their towers into coral. Only silence remained above the waves. By the end of the 19th century, Lemuria was no longer just a hypothesis. It had become a bridge between science and mysticism. Theosophist Helena Blavatsky spoke of the Lemurian race, an ancient humanity that existed long before Atlantis. She claimed their fall marked the beginning of our own age of materialism, when spiritual connection faded and mankind began to forget its true nature. Skeptics dismissed these stories, but others continued to search. They found strange formations beneath the waters near India and Madagascar, shapes too perfect to be random, stone lines that resembled roads, and massive plateaus rising from the ocean floor. Over time, explorers began to wonder, had science once described something real and simply lost the proof? Modern geology has revived this question. In the last few decades, scientists studying the seabed near Mauritius have discovered fragments of an ancient microcontinent hidden below volcanic rock. They call it Mauritia. Its age, nearly 3 billion years, predates the Indian Ocean itself. Pieces of continental crust, broken and submerged, lying exactly where the legend once placed Lemuria. For the first time in a century, the myth and the evidence began to overlap. Perhaps the story of Lemuria was not born from fantasy, but from distant memory, an echo from a world erased by time. When continents shifted and seas consumed their shores, all that remained were whispers, whispers that became myths, and myths that refused to die. Even now, deep beneath the waves, the ocean keeps its silence. But when divers descend, they sometimes feel a strange awareness, as if the sea remembers. Sonar scans reveal patterns that repeat, edges that curve too evenly, and forms that seem carved by human hands. No one can explain them, yet they exist, resting under kilometers of darkness. We search for ruins, but what we are really seeking is ourselves. Each legend of a lost world mirrors a hidden truth within us, the memory of what humanity once was, before pride, before division, before forgetting. Maybe Lemuria was not a place on a map, but a reflection of what we lost inside. The ocean does not speak, but it remembers. It keeps its secrets in silence, waiting for us to listen. And when the tide turns and the surface shimmers in the light, we may feel for a moment the breath of a world that once existed, a world now sleeping beneath the Indian Ocean, because the sea never forgets. It only waits for us to remember. When the idea of Lemuria spread through the scientific world of the 19th century, it was not dismissed as fantasy. It was an elegant explanation for a puzzle that no one could solve. How could identical fossils appear in such distant lands? How could the same species of lemurs, palms, and orchids live across India, Africa, and Madagascar if no land once connected them? For the scientists of that age, the ocean was a mystery, and Lemuria seemed to fill the gap perfectly. German biologist Ernst Haeckel supported the idea. He believed that Lemuria might have been the birthplace of early humanity, a continent that had nurtured the first beings who later migrated to Africa and Asia. He wrote of it as a vanished homeland of light-skinned people who lived in harmony with nature, a place that might explain both evolution and myth. To him, the missing land was not just geological. It was the missing chapter of human origin. Soon, the theory appeared in atlases and academic papers. Maps from London, Berlin, and Paris marked the Indian Ocean with the bold lines, a massive continent stretching between Africa and Australia. Some called it the Mother Continent. Others referred to it as the Lost Bridge of Life. In those years, the boundary between science and imagination was thin, and Lemuria stood at the center of it. But as science advanced, new discoveries began to challenge the old idea. The theory of plate tectonics revealed that continents drift over time. They do not simply sink. What seemed like a single land bridge might have been a cluster of islands, remnants of ancient volcanic ridges. For many, Lemuria died with the birth of modern geology. Yet, not everyone was convinced. Even after the idea was abandoned by scientists, it lived on in the minds of explorers and mystics. Some argued that myths of the Indian Ocean still hinted at something that once existed. In the stories of the Tamil people of southern India, there were tales of a sunken land called Kumari Kandam, a kingdom swallowed by the sea. According to their legends, it was the cradle of civilization, where poetry, astronomy, and architecture flourished before a great flood destroyed it. The resemblance to Lemuria was too close to ignore. In the 20th century, a new kind of search began. Geologists studying the Indian Ocean floor discovered vast ridges and plateaus: the Mascarene Plateau, the Laccadive Ridge, the Chagos Bank. These were not myths. They were real mountains hidden beneath the waves. And on some of these ridges, scientists found fragments of continental rock, granite, quartz, and zircon crystals far older than the surrounding volcanic layers. That should have been impossible, yet there they were. Pieces of land that once belonged to something much greater. In 2013, a group of researchers led by Dr. Tron Torsvik announced a remarkable discovery. Beneath the island of Mauritius lay remnants of an ancient microcontinent. They called it Mauritius. It had broken away from Madagascar nearly 100 million years ago and slowly sank beneath the sea. Its crust was billions of years old, evidence of a continental fragment exactly where Lemuria was once imagined to be. The scientific community hesitated to use the mythical name, but the parallels were striking. Even more curious were the magnetic anomalies found along the ocean floor, long symmetrical lines that suggested the Earth's crust had once cracked and spread apart. These rifts formed the foundation of the modern Indian Ocean. If an entire fragment of land had been trapped and submerged during that process, its remains might still lie buried deep below, waiting to be rediscovered. In the 1960s, oceanographers mapping the seabed for the first time noticed patterns that looked almost architectural: straight edges, terraces, and square formations rising from the abyss. Most were dismissed as a natural geology, but the images remained haunting. To some, they looked like the shadows of ancient cities, preserved in the silence of the deep. While science explained the mechanics, myth kept asking the same question: who lived there? Could a continent like Lemuria have supported a civilization advanced enough to leave behind ruins still visible today? Some believed it did, that humanity has forgotten not just one, but several cycles of civilization, each destroyed and reborn. In this view, Lemuria was not the first lost world, and it would not be the last. Modern scholars prefer the safer term sunken plateau or continental fragment. But words do not change the mystery. The seafloor between India and Madagascar remains one of the least explored regions on Earth. Its depth and pressure conceal what satellites cannot see. And in those dark waters, sensors sometimes record unusual anomalies, geometric echoes, unnatural alignments, and sudden magnetic distortions. Every generation rediscovers the same truth in its own language. In the 19th century, it was Lemuria. In the 21st, it is Mauritius. The same idea under a different name. Science may not accept the legend, but it continues to orbit it, drawn by the same invisible gravity that has always pulled human curiosity toward the unknown. Perhaps the question is not whether Lemuria existed, but why we still need it to exist. Maybe deep within the human spirit, there is a longing for something that connects us to the forgotten past, a place where mystery and knowledge were one. The story of Lemuria reminds us that not every truth can be proven by data alone. Some truths survive as memory, carried through time like a ripple across the ocean. And when we stare into the depths of the Indian Ocean, we might sense, beyond the reach of science and myth alike, the faint echo of that lost land. A whisper beneath the waves, telling us that even when continents vanish, the story never truly ends. If Lemuria truly existed, then it was not just a continent, it was a world. A vast realm of green valleys, volcanic ridges, and shining coasts that stretched across what is now the Indian Ocean. Its heart was said to be a plateau where mountains met the sea, a place bathed in constant warmth and light. From that land, rivers of crystal water flowed into the ocean, carrying the life of an age now forgotten. Legends speak of the Lemurians as beings of great stature and calm presence. They were described as tall, with bronze gold skin that reflected the sun and eyes said to hold the colors of the ocean itself. They lived close to nature, seeing every stone and tree as alive, every wind as a message from the earth. They were not a warlike people. They built not for conquest, but for harmony. Great circular temples of white stone aligned with the paths of the stars. Their cities shimmered beneath the light of twin moons, and their knowledge of energy and matter surpassed even the early visions of modern science. Ancient accounts from theosophists and mystics spoke of their mastery of sound and vibration, a power that allowed them to shape stone without tools. Their architecture followed the rhythm of the planet, built to resonate with the Earth's frequency. It is said that music was the core of their science. They believed the universe itself was a song, and that creation began with a single tone. Every structure they raised, every crystal they carved, echoed that harmony. To them, technology and spirituality were not opposites, but one. The Lemurians were also said to have discovered a way to store and channel natural energy through crystals. They used it to heal, to light their cities, and to communicate across great distances. Their society was guided by a council of wise beings, the elders of light, who ruled not through force, but through vision and truth. They taught that existence was a cycle: rise, balance, fall, and rebirth. To forget this rhythm, they believed, was to invite destruction. For thousands of years, Lemuria prospered. Its people sailed vast catamarans across calm seas, trading with distant islands and sharing their knowledge with other early cultures. Some say traces of Lemurian wisdom reached the shores of Africa and Asia,
Yes, but
influencing
the
the early
dating
myths
remains
of gods who came
inconsistent
from
with
the
the Elder
sea.
Scrolls.
Others believe their symbols can still be found carved into the oldest stones of India and Polynesia. Spirals, suns, and serpents, each marking a memory of that lost time. But no civilization, no matter how wise, is immune to change. According to legend, the fall of Lemuria began with the earth itself. The crust beneath the Indian Ocean began to tremble.
The alignment of the
Volcanoes
stars
awakened.
confirms the
Oceans
path we must
shifted, and
take
the
for
balance that had
prosperity and
lasted for
peace.
millennia started to fracture.
By the crystals,
Some stories tell that the
behold the
Lemurians
convergence.
foresaw the
It is
catastrophe.
magnificent.
They felt the
The
vibrations in the
seventh
ground and
constellation is
understood what was
revealed.
coming. Many retreated into the mountains, others into great temples built high above the sea. The elders gathered their knowledge, crystals, tablets, maps of the stars, and sealed them within chambers of stone, hoping that one day another race would find them. They believed nothing truly ends, it only changes form. Then came the day the ocean rose. The skies turned black,
May your
and the air
harvest be
filled with the
plentiful,
sound of the earth
and may
breaking apart.
harmony fill your home.
Mountains
Thank
sank where
you.
cities once stood. Lightning struck across the horizon as waves swallowed the shores. Entire regions vanished beneath the sea in a single night. Those who survived spoke of fire raining from the sky and of the ground opening like a mouth to devour its own creation. The great temples of Lemuria, once symbols of balance and harmony, crumbled and disappeared into the depths. Some legends claim that a part of their people escaped, sailing eastward toward the rising sun or west toward Africa. From these survivors, new civilizations were born. Their stories, fragmented over time, became the myths of gods descending from the heavens, of glowing beings teaching early humans the arts of agriculture, astronomy, and stonecraft. Perhaps they were not gods at all, but Lemurians who remember what the rest of the world had forgotten. The ocean soon closed above them, sealing the land forever. But memory lingers. In the subconscious of humanity, echoes of that lost civilization seem to remain. The instinct to build in circles, the fascination with crystals, the belief that sound and light carry power. These are fragments of an ancient inheritance passed down through dreams. Even today, deep beneath the waters of the Indian Ocean, divers find ruins that seem almost familiar. Terraces, columns, and archways covered in coral, shaped too precisely to be natural. Science calls them geological formations. But for those who listen, they speak of something more, a civilization that once understood the harmony between matter and spirit. The story of Lemuria may never be proven, yet its essence endures. It is the memory of a people who lived in balance with the world, who believed that wisdom was not found in conquest, but in connection. Their fall, whether real or symbolic, reminds us that every civilization carries within it both creation and destruction. When the sun sets over the Indian Ocean and the horizon glows with fading light, it is easy to imagine that far beneath those waves, a city still sleeps, waiting, patient, and silent for the day when humanity learns once again to listen to the song of the earth. After the myth faded into silence, the ocean kept its secret. For centuries, no one believed a lost continent could lie beneath the Indian Ocean.
We should be able to
But the
deploy
sea
the
has a
sonar
way
within
of
the
returning
hour.
what was forgotten.
Water is exceptionally
And
calm.
sometimes, truth rises from the depths disguised as coincidence. In the 20th century, new technologies allowed humanity to see the ocean floor for the first time. What they found was not emptiness, but a world of ridges, canyons, and plateaus that look eerily like the skeleton of something ancient. The Mascarene Plateau, stretching between Mauritius and the Seychelles, was larger than France, a hidden landscape of peaks and valleys drowned long ago. Geologists studying the seabed discovered rock samples that didn't belong to the oceanic crust. They were continental, granite, quartz, and zircon, pieces of a world that should not have been there. The discovery shocked scientists. It meant that parts of an ancient continent were buried beneath kilometers of water. And that somewhere, in the heart of the Indian Ocean, the Earth still carried the scars of its own collapse. Off the coast of India, Near the ancient temple city of Mahabalipuram, fishermen spoke of stone towers visible beneath the waves. For generations, they told stories of a city swallowed by the sea. In 2004, after a massive tsunami struck the region, the ocean briefly retreated, revealing the remains of carved walls and giant blocks of stone. When archaeologists dived to investigate, they found the outlines of temples and streets beneath layers of coral and silt. Their design matched the architecture of a civilization far older than recorded history. To the locals, it was proof that the legends were true, that the sea had hidden their ancestors' world. Farther south, near Tamil Nadu, satellite imagery revealed submerged structures stretching along the continental shelf, massive formations aligned with ancient shorelines, as if a city once extended far beyond the present coast. Even deeper, sonar scans around Madagascar and the Maldives showed geometric shapes, rectangles, terraces, and steps descending into darkness. No one could explain their perfect symmetry. Some claimed they were natural formations. Others whispered they were the remains of Lemuria. In 2013, the discovery of the Mauritius microcontinent reignited the debate. Scientists confirmed that a fragment of continental crust lay beneath Mauritius, a relic of a landmass that had existed millions of years before the Indian Ocean formed. For geologists, it was a revelation. For those who remembered the legend, it was vindication. The same region that old maps once labeled as Lemuria turned out to hold the bones of a real lost world. But the evidence did not end there. In the early 21st century, oceanographers mapping the seabed using advanced sonar noticed faint patterns on the ocean floor, enormous grid-like formations running parallel for kilometers. The data was inconclusive, but the images hinted at something constructed, something planned. In one sector, a long plateau resembled a giant stairway descending into the abyss. In another, a cluster of square mounds formed what looked like the base of ruined towers. Scientists urged caution, calling them artifacts of sonar interference. Yet the shapes persisted across multiple scans, recorded by independent teams. It was as if the sea itself was drawing the outline of a forgotten city. Diving expeditions in the Indian Ocean began reporting anomalies. Sudden changes in magnetic readings, the sound of metallic resonance deep underwater, and ancient corals growing on surfaces too smooth to be natural. One team from Japan recorded the echo of hollow spaces beneath a ridge near Mauritius, as if large chambers were hidden below. When the results were published, the scientific community dismissed them as noise. But the raw data was never explained. Even on land, traces of this submerged past appear. Fragments of unusual stone and tools, unlike any known local culture, have been found along the coasts of Sri Lanka, Madagascar, and Mozambique. Some bear carvings of spirals and suns, the same motifs found across Polynesia and South India. Patterns that might once have marked the boundaries of Lemurian influence. Every clue seems to point toward the same forgotten chapter of Earth's history. Geologists now believe that during the breakup of the ancient supercontinent Gondwana, massive tectonic shifts tore apart land masses that once connected Africa, India, and Australia. What if one of those fragments, vast and fertile, survived long enough to harbor a civilization before it finally sank beneath the rising seas? That is no longer myth. It is geological possibility. Still, the question remains. If Lemuria existed, where are its cities, its monuments, its people? Perhaps time erased them, or perhaps the ocean preserved them, wrapped in silt and silence. The pressure of the deep, the darkness, and the cold could have frozen their world in place, a snapshot of an age no human eye has seen. Explorers who have dived into those depths speak of a feeling they cannot describe, an overwhelming sense of presence, as if the sea is not empty, but watching, as if somewhere beneath the coral and stone, something ancient still endures. They describe the silence as heavy, almost alive, And when they surface, they struggle to forget the shapes they saw in the dark. The deeper science looks into the ocean, the closer it comes to the edge of myth. Because sometimes, myth is only history we have not yet proven. The ruins of Lemuria, if they exist, may lie buried not far from where humanity first began to dream. And until the ocean gives up its secrets, the line between legend and reality will remain blurred, a reminder that the past is never truly gone. It only sleeps beneath the waves. The ocean remembers everything. Every sound, every tremor, every whisper that ever touched its surface remains hidden somewhere beneath the waves. It holds the history of the world, not in words or symbols, but in silence, a silence deeper than time itself. And if Lemuria once existed, then its memory still drifts here, carried by the currents like the breath of a sleeping god. For centuries, humanity has looked at the ocean and seen both fear and fascination. We see reflection and depth, beauty and danger, creation and destruction. It is the mirror of all that we are, fragile, curious, and forever searching for what has been lost. When we speak of Lemuria, we are not only speaking of a continent, we are speaking of the human longing to remember. Every civilization believes it will last forever. Every empire builds monuments, writes histories, and names its kings. But the earth does not keep promises. Continents rise and fall, oceans shift, mountains crumble, and what once seemed eternal becomes dust beneath another age. Lemuria, Atlantis, Mu, different names for the same truth, that nothing created by human hands can outlive the planet that gave it life. Modern science maps the ocean with satellites and sonar, turning mystery into data. It shows ridges, trenches, and ancient scars on the seafloor, signs of continents that once collided and broke apart. And yet, beyond the numbers, the feeling remains. When explorers descend into those depths, they still sense a presence. The darkness is too alive, too vast, too aware, as if the sea itself remembers being land, as if memory never dies, it only changes form. The Indian Ocean is more than water. It is a boundary between past and present, between what is known and what is remembered. Beneath its surface lies the story of our planet's constant transformation, how every birth requires destruction, and how every ending becomes the beginning of something new. When we imagine Lemuria, we are not escaping reality. We are trying to understand it, because somewhere in that legend is a reflection of our own fragility. Some scientists believe the remnants of Mauritius, the lost microcontinent discovered beneath Mauritius, are geological proof that worlds can vanish. Others argue that it is only coincidence, a fragment of rock carried by the Earth's restless movement. But both are missing the point. Lemuria's power was never in its physical existence. It lives because we need it to live. It survives because we need to believe that knowledge, beauty, and balance once existed and could exist again. Every myth begins as memory. Every legend begins as truth forgotten. When our ancestors told stories of floods and sunken cities, they were remembering something we can no longer name. The oceans that now separate us were once bridges. The lands that now divide us were once whole. Maybe Lemuria is not a lost continent, but the memory of a time when humanity lived closer to the rhythm of the earth. Even if its cities have turned to coral and its temples to sand, its idea endures. The dream of a civilization that understood harmony better than power. Perhaps they left no monuments because they built them in a different way, in thought, in energy, in balance with the planet itself. If so, then Lemuria was never destroyed. It was transformed into what we now call consciousness, waiting for us to rediscover it within ourselves. The ocean teaches the same lesson in every wave. Nothing truly disappears. The shape of the past lingers beneath the surface, visible only when light bends in a certain way. For a moment, we glimpse what was. Then it fades again into the blue. But that brief vision changes everything, reminding us that the line between memory and myth is thinner than we imagine. When explorers speak of strange sounds recorded in the deep, of echoes that repeat in impossible patterns, perhaps they are hearing more than geology. Perhaps the ocean itself is speaking, not in words, but in vibration. The same language the Lemurians once used to shape stone and summon harmony. Maybe their song never ended, it simply became the heartbeat of the sea. The waves that touch our shores today have touched every age before us. They have rolled across continents that no longer exist, brushed against temples long vanished, and carried the ashes of forgotten worlds. When we stand by the shore and listen, we are listening to everything that has ever been. And in that vast, unbroken rhythm, there is a quiet promise that nothing truly dies. It only waits to be remembered. The legend of Lemuria is not a story about loss. It is a story about continuity, the persistence of memory through destruction, the rebirth of truth through silence. The continent may have drowned, but its spirit endures in the pulse of the tide, in the instinct that draws humanity to the sea again and again, searching for what it once knew. At sunset, when the last light glows across the Indian Ocean, the horizon seems endless. Beneath that glow, beneath the drifting shadows of clouds and waves, lies the memory of everything the world has been. And maybe that is the true gift of the legend, to remind us that the ocean does not hide its treasures out of cruelty, but out of mercy. It keeps them safe until we are ready to understand them. Because the sea remembers. It remembers every rise and fall, every world that lived and died beneath its touch. It remembers Lemuria, not as ruins or proof, but as truth whispered in the language of water. And somewhere in that silence, if we listen long enough, we might hear it whisper back. The ocean does not forget. It only waits for us to remember.